What to do? What to do? If there was only a tool that could help me make this decision. Hello everybody, Avion Solar here, and today we're going to be discussing the National Decision Making Model, or NDM. So let's start by answering the question, what is the NDM? Well, put simply, the NDM is a tool officers can use when it comes to making any decision when at work, and sometimes it can be referred to as spinning the NDM. If we take a look at the National Decision Making Model, we can see it contains 5 stages, all in a loop, that all revolve around the Code of Ethics, and this is because the Code of Ethics should be considered at every stage of the NDM. Now, speaking of those stages, let's discuss them all individually so we cover what an officer should do at each stage. So, step 1 of the National Decision Making Model, gather information and intelligence. In this step, an officer should gather all the information they can about a situation. They should consider the 5 W's. Who was involved? What happened? Where did it happen? When did this happen? Why did it happen? And how did this happen? Step 2. An officer should now assess the threat and develop a working strategy. When doing this, an officer should consider what threats are there? What are the risks? What's the highest threat and what's the highest risk? What information does the officer not know about the situation? And ultimately, what's the officer trying to achieve? Step 3. So at this point, an officer should consider the relevant legislation, policing powers, and all relevant force policy. Speaking of powers and policy, I think it's the policy of most YouTubers around this point in the video to ask, if you are enjoying my video, please do consider liking and subscribing. It's a great help to me and the channel, and it shows that you actually enjoy my content and it's worthwhile me spending my time to make it. So like I said, if you do enjoy my content, please consider liking and subscribing by hitting those buttons down below. Step 4. Options and contingencies. At this point, an officer should consider what options are open to them, and any contingencies should they choose an option and that option doesn't go the way they plan. Some options to consider are to do nothing, just observe what's happening, take immediate action, or take delayed action such as calling for backup and waiting for that to arrive before you take further action. And finally, step 5, the action and review stage. In this step, an officer should act upon the option they've selected, record any actions they've taken, whether it was a positive or a negative outcome, and once all this has been completed, sit down and review their decisions to establish if it was the right decision, and if it wasn't the right decision, what learning points can they take from this. Now, it's worth mentioning at this point that the NDM is a constantly developing thing. So, if an officer shows up to a location and sees a couple of people having a verbal argument, they may decide that they're going to step in, act now, just to separate the parties and prevent escalating. If, at some point, one of the parties then say pulls a knife out, it's developed, the threats become higher, the risk is more, they may step in or they may decide, I need to step back, draw my baton, higher use of force at this point and get something back up here. So an officer needs to constantly be developing and rerunning the NDM throughout the same situation, and they can't rely on just one spinning of it. Speaking of powers and policy, I believe it's YouTubers' policy for